Change, if implemented poorly, can cause unrest. In the north, a great house that had presided as the utmost authority in the region, second only to the crown, fell through dark and dishonest means, replaced with a sword to the neck and a knife to the heart. The new Wardens of the North commanded their subjects through both diplomacy and force, but that hardly meant all was well. Even without the final participant from the War of the Five Kings marching down from his temporary residence at the Wall, some northern folk disapproved of their new liegelords. And none more than the Lord of White Harbor, Wyman Manderly. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Rotund and rather unassuming, Wyman Manderly settled for the new state of affairs at the end of the War of the Five Kings, though more out of desperation than satisfaction. Still, it was clear by his words and actions, maybe even those that have yet to be revealed, that he was looking to wage war in the periphery. While Stannis stormed toward the gates of the Boltons' new Winterfell, Lord Manderly looked to create disruption from within. The North was different, but the petty ways of the nobles remained the same. So, who exactly is Wyman Manderly, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Wyman Manderly was born between 239 and 242 AC to unnamed parents in the city of White Harbor. He grew up an only child and the heir to his father's seat, and even earned some renown as a knight. At some point in his early adulthood, he became the head of House Manderly and inherited White Harbor, from whence he rode to aid Robert Baratheon himself in the Battle of the Trident during the final days of Robert's rebellion. After the battle, Wyman granted the seat of Wolf's Den to Sir Bartimus, as the man had saved his life in the height of the bloody conflict. Lord Wyman was married to an unnamed wife, and together they had two children, Sir Willis Manderly and Sir Wendell Manderly, but his beloved passed away around the year 291 AC. Wyman never remarried. Often mocked because of his physical features, Lord Manderly was quite infamous for his massive weight. At the time of the current narrative, he is about 60 years old with a bloated frame. His eyes shimmer misty blue, and a slight white beard does little to hide his multiple chins. None to his shame, Wyman no longer rides a horse as a result of his girth, instead carried across the land in a litter. In both his younger days and middle-aged, he took on the role of the loud, crass, and foolish fat man, but beneath the surface, Wyman Manderly displayed grand intelligence and unwavering loyalty to the true lords of the North. However, he kept this side of himself hidden, instead opting to play the foolish coward so as to go unnoticed and underestimated. His garb often consisted of robes of blue-green, pinned with golden tridents that were the symbol of his house. He wore many titles due to the storied history of his family, though loved nothing more than to eat. This led to cushions being added to his throne at White Harbor, and it is here he sits as the current story of A Song of Ice and Fire approaches. Appearing only briefly in A Game of Thrones, Wyman treats with Catelyn Stark on her way home from King's Landing. The Lady of Winterfell informs the large man of her husband Eddard's orders to bolster the White Harbor garrison, and he remains behind when Eddard's son Robb calls the northern banners in preparation for war. Instead, he sends his two sons, Sir Willis and Sir Wendell, to represent House Manderly in support of the young wolf. In A Clash of Kings, the rotund Lord Manderly actually rises from his seat, choosing to attend the harvest feast at Winterfell with the rest of the northern lords and ladies. Arriving at the stout castle, he offers to young Bran Stark, the current acting lord of Winterfell, to lead the charge in the creation of a new coinage for King Robb, and also offers himself or his son Sir Wendell as a suitor for the widow Lady Danella Hornwood. His request is moot, however, as soon the unhinged bastard of Bolton, Ramsay Snow, forces Lady Danella into marriage at sword point. Affronted, Wyman moves to retake the Hornwood lands, disgusted at the thought of the region falling under Bolton control. And when the turncloak Theon Greyjoy takes Winterfell out from under his former foster family, Wyman sends a sizable force of men to join Sir Roderick Castle's army, who all intend to take back their home. Instead, they are betrayed and massacred by Ramsay Snow and his Bolton men outside the gates of Winterfell, and Wyman can only sit and watch from his cushioned throne in White Harbor. Mentioned only in passing in A Storm of Swords, Wyman too is affected by the Red Wedding and its consequences. In the foul ploy, he loses Wendell, who is killed at the Twins with King Robb, leaving Willis as his only remaining child. Willis is in no more favorable circumstances, however, as he sits as a captive at the hands of Sir Gregor Clegane. In A Feast for Crows, again Wyman is only mentioned, but the news with which he is associated bears great importance for many other powerful figures in the Seven Kingdoms. Cersei Lannister and the rest of King Tommen's small council learn that Lord Wyman has purportedly imprisoned the Onion Knight, Lord Davos Seaworth. Cersei orders Wyman to kill the man, which would greatly weaken the position of the upstart Stannis Baratheon, and to the naked eye, it appears that the Lord of White Harbor acquiesces the request. Members of House Frey claim that they have seen Davos's head upon a spike atop the walls of White Harbor, and for his cooperation, Cersei orders Jaime Lannister to set Wyman's son Willis free from captivity. However, as it is soon revealed, Wyman Manderly's resolve has not crumbled away so quickly. In A Dance with Dragons, Wyman remains in White Harbor, but all is not as it seems. He refuses to bend the knee outright to Stannis, and accepts into his hall 3 sons of Frey, who return the bones of Sir Wendell after the ordeal of the Red Wedding. As they represent the Iron Throne, the Freys negotiate with Wyman a return to the king's peace, which involves a ransom for Sir Willis, as well as the marriage of Wyman to a daughter of Lord Walder Frey, along with the union of Wyman's granddaughters Winifred and Willa to Rhaegar Frey and little Walder Frey, respectively. With the Freys still in his company, Wyman also accepts Lord Davos Seaworth into White Harbor, as the Onion Knight is sent to treat on behalf of Stannis. The portly lord listens to Davos, and on the outside remains stoic as the Freys insult and defame the deceased Robb Stark. He agrees when they suggest Tommen is the rightful king, and when Willa suggests he align with Davos, Wyman silences her. Putting on a great show in front of the crowd, Wyman demands his cousin, Sir Marlon Manderly, have Davos executed, as he is a traitor to the crown. Instead, assuredly at Wyman's secret orders, Davos is ushered to the Wolf's Den, a rather luxurious prison of White Harbor. Meanwhile, a prisoner slightly resembling the Onion Knight is killed and altered to look like the man who he unfortunately resembles, and the face passes the inspection of the dim-witted Freys. They inform Queen Regent Cersei Lannister, who in turn grants Sir Willis his freedom. The rugged prisoner finally returns to his father's seat at White Harbor, and a great feast is prepared as is the Manderly fashion, to welcome back their surviving heir. During the celebration, Wyman meets with Lord Davos and Robert Glover in the privacy of the new castle, and the former apologizes for the way he has been forced to treat Davos. He explains that he is still loyal to the true Lords of the North, and is only placating the Lannisters and Freys to deceive them. All this while, he has been commissioning the creation of warships, which sit in hiding on the White Knife, but warns that spies exist all around him, and he has been forced to tread carefully. Wyman then introduces Davos to the young Iron Islander Wex Pike, a boy who lived through the Bolton massacre at Winterfell, and claims to have seen the escape of Rickon Stark with the wildling woman Osha. Jowls aquiver, especially after learning that it was the Boltons responsible for so much northern strife. Wyman confides in Davos, declaring that he will bend the knee to Stannis if Rickon Stark is retrieved from the island of Skagos, the place Osha was leading him for safety. Davos departs to carry out the task himself, and Wyman continues in his game of deception against the powers that be. With the Onion Knight off on his own secretive quest, and the rest of Westeros placated by Wyman's supposed adherence to the crown, the Lord of White Harbor journeys to Rotund to attend the wedding of Ramsay Bolton to Arya Stark. As he leaves, he grants the 3 Freys in his company palfreys, officially removing them from guest right protection. On the road, the sons of the twins disappear, and Wyman claims he knows not their fate, and that they rode far ahead of him. Suspicion and strife arises from these mysterious disappearances, and many in the Frey camp suspect Wyman himself is the perpetrator. Still, he arrives safely at Winterfell, the place to which Lord Roose Bolton has moved the wedding, with mounds upon mounds of food in tow. At the feast, Lord Wyman presents his special dishes, 3 monstrous pies, which he serves to the guests after taking a few slices for himself. Ruse watches Wyman closely, making sure he does not eat anything the rotund man refuses to touch. In a seemingly offhanded request, Wyman asks the bard Abel, Mance Rayder in disguise, to perform the song of the Rat Cook. Is this a mere coincidence? Or is the Lord of White Harbor hinting at a more sinister connection? Following Ramsay's wedding, a blizzard soon engulfs the north, and Winterfell and its temporary residents are hardly immune. With everyone forced inside indefinitely, tensions flare between the disgruntled guests, and the remaining Freys accuse Wyman of causing the disappearance of their brethren. Wyman, of course, pleads innocence, though he too is blamed for the disappearances and deaths sprouting up around Winterfell. Confusion runs amok, and as tempers boil, Wyman's throat is nearly slit by Hostine Frey after the former insults the latter's house. His wounds are treated, however, and he lives to see another day, though Lord Roose demands he aid House Bolton in the upcoming battle against King Stannis. Open opposition is not the way of Wyman Manderly. Instead, he wages his wars with deception, trickery, and manipulation. Some may call it the practice of a coward, but the Lord of White Harbor sees it merely as intellect directed with a purpose. Handcuffed from the start by his son's capture by the Mountain, Wyman is forced to play the aloof oaf as houses Lannister, Bolton, and Frey together reshape Westeros in their twisted image. Already deprived of Sir Wendell, who was killed at the Red Wedding, Wyman refuses to lose his other son Willis, and so adopts a new persona, beneath which a quivering discontent grows. He watches as Roose and Ramsay build a new regime in the waylaid north they had just disintegrated. He watches as the Freys roam freely, spreading libelous tales of the young wolf. He watches as Cersei and her spawn seize control of the Iron Throne, his son still in their clutches. But all this time, Wyman waits, biding calmly and innocently at White Harbor for the correct moment to act. When Lord Davos Seaworth arrives at his hall, Wyman seizes the chance to pull a stunt to put himself in the good graces of all with full force. By staging the execution of the Onion Knight, he frees Willis and thus loosens the grip around his bulging throat held by the powers that be, and in the same breath strikes up a new alliance. Wyman reveals to Davos the forces already gathering at his request, and advises that they will be at the disposal of King Stannis if young Rickon Stark is retrieved from Skagos. After all, Lord Manderly never really lost his allegiance to the true Wardens of the North. Further still is his cunning put on display when he is forced indoors at Winterfell, surrounded by enemies. The Freys and Boltons alike finally begin to suspect Wyman of treachery, but the large lord leans into his masterful charade. He heightens his stupidity, downplays his shrewdness, and highlights his massive weight. It is plain to see that he is no mighty warrior. Still, for those Wyman truly trusts and needs, his position could not be more clear. He is a rat in a den of vipers, even possibly feeding them some snake pie. By acting the fool, Wyman Manderly becomes a director of chaos and discord from the shadows. Fat, hardy, and unassuming, Wyman Manderly seemed the farthest cry from a threat for the new ruling families in the Seven Kingdoms. After all, they still face threats from other upstarts from the north and off the coast. Yet the Lord of White Harbor may have been, and still may be, the trickiest of all. His game was one of the mind, not of the sword. Wyman was placed in a precarious position due to the fate of his sons, and he enveloped himself in it fully, entrenching himself in his new role. He exaggerated the characteristics that painted him a subservient, cowardly man, all while hatching his own schemes behind the backs of his enemies. He sowed paranoia from within, and pledged his allegiance to what he believed would bring back the North as he knew it. Wyman took advantage of being underestimated, becoming a greater threat than most would care to accept. Especially in the North, Wyman Manderly became the new Dissenter. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive reviews, fiction, and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.